Peace, love, and cheers. This video right here, dedicated to newer account who sent a comment, I think, calling me a hipster. And thinking about this and commenting back, saying I did have a group of friends in high school who, despite my annoyance, called me helpful hipster at a music festival. But it made me think of something Alan Watts, the beatnik philosopher, and had a doctorate in Eastern religions studies and philosophy. He would talk about how the people that practice yoga, the people that are practice meditation, the people who are very strict and disciplined, or put on the persona, the personification of being strict and disciplined in their spiritual practices, they can be they can be just as annoying as people who don't really practice spirituality of any kind, if not more annoying at times. They put themselves on a pedestal, if they're not careful, due to the ego, on being more spiritually evolved. And I can't help but always my own life, growing up, it's sure as heck nothing new. People would naturally call me a hipster because they think I'm trying to be something entirely different than the rest of the crowd, man. Which I always laughed at because I knew I was just being my authenticated self and nerding out on social science major and studying societies and seeing how we like to compartmentalize everything from the products we buy to the services and goods we do to the cities and places we live, and we even compartmentalize the kinds of people we are. This cosmopolitized way of indoctrination where we in some ways can say dilutes away from the unique diversification that is every single last one of us, every single last one of you being another version of I. Wow, that was me digressing. I say this all to refer to hipster. As the Borg once said from Star Trek, resistance is futile. Therefore, as long as I resist this notion of being a hipster, then I will portray in my personality, my personification, the one online or otherwise, a hipster. But this is perfectly fine. This is to say, the definition of waking up in my book is to be more conscious to our unconscious patterns that the ego plays out. To waken up is to imply sleeping in the first place. To realize that if you're not programming yourself, if you're not brainwashing yourself, as long as you have a brain, it will be washed, then someone else is for you. And when you are conscious of this all playing out, then inevitably you can be even more subjected to brainwashing, perpetuating unconscious behaviors you know do not serve you while being conscious to it. Everyone who's on this path, if you will, all the labels, light worker, empath, indigo, at the end of the day, irrelevant, because all labels, as all language as we speak, it's a signpost to what can't be described with words. Everyone in the path of awakening, if you will, knows that they will trick themselves in their own progression, in a way. It's like in Zen Buddhist teachings, they use the word satori for achieving enlightenment. But the funny thing about satori that is taught is that you don't think of satori. You are not able to conceptualize the Satori moment, conceptualize enlightenment. If you think you're there, you're definitely not there. There's an inner sense of knowing and depth that goes way beyond mind alone, to tap into the macrocosm mind, if you will, that seeds our microcosm mind, or seeds our ego, which serves a purpose in conscious development, a purpose to this human experience and proceeding onward. And so that's what I would call the hipster. Hipster equals spiritual ego. And that's exactly what I'm going to title this video, serendipitously decided in the midst of this conversation with myself and your fellow subscribers and beyond. Hipster equals spiritual ego. Because I would be lying to myself if I wasn't ever in a space where I thought, these bloody hell people, I feel so alien to them. I always have. I feel like I'm more developed. I'm not. No one, even the most unconscious person you know in comparison to you, that's all ego. That's irrelevant. Blessed every single last one of you watching and beyond, being another version of I. We see it, our mind compartmentalizes it as a hierarchical construct. But in reality, in actuality, when it comes to the vastness of holonarchical intellect that is seen through sacred geometry, from the stars to the ecology, to even down to our anatomy and biology, every single last one of us wouldn't be where we were in our own development, on our own journey, without everyone else that our mind could see as being more or less spiritually developed. I'll leave it this note. My favorite college class ever, existential literature, English 31. I failed it 3 times and took it with all 3 instructors at this Butte college that I go to. My favorite instructor was Gibbons. I only failed because I aced all the papers until the final paper. The final paper I always screwed up because I was investing way too much into the topic. But one teacher said it best when she first taught how education, edu in education, is educara. It's Latin and it means to draw from within. To draw from within is to see us as social beings. From my perspective, it's to see us as social beings as being just precisely as all these trees in this wild ecology. Hello, Copper. This wild ecology. We, in our natural state, in our natural holonarchical state, grow with each other. Education's drawn from within. This is why we are naturally social creatures. We are supposed to socialize with one another, just as fungi helps create symbiosis and the socialization that every last one of these trees and bushes and other plants communicate with each other to help bring forth within the seed, within these trees, the vegetation that rests within. And after Gibbons talked about this, that is her name, Dr. Gibbons, Venezuelan lady. She is an amazing person, quite the intellectual. She talked about how really when it comes to teaching, one of the people who I can honestly say has inspired me to take that path of being a college teacher in philosophy, probably. One of the things she loves about teaching and always will is to put herself out of the ego space. Put herself in the higher self space, if you will, of recognizing that to truly teach is to know you know nothing, or this is to say, to know that to teach is to also be the student, because she learns something entirely new and gets an entirely fresh perspective on an insight from a student just learning this course of existential literature or the other classes that she teaches. That she never would have thought of before, even though she has been invested for so long. This does not matter. And so, yeah, recognize this within oneself. If you are Mandela affected, for instance, my mind will never know for sure, but I have to tell you, my heart knows and resonates that you are on this path. Inevitably, we're all on this path, right? If you identify as a star seed or a light worker, recognize that inevitably everyone's a star seed and a light worker, whether you're conscious of it or not. Because blessed all the people around me that my ego would see as being more unconscious, because really at the end of the day, all those people who I see as being more spiritually developed that inspire me, in contrast to those who I get frustrated with and I learned lessons from, they too develop your spiritual path. That's why Jesus says, for instance, love thy enemy. Right? Your enemy is another version of you. You can't love you can't love thy enemy. Guess what? You don't love yourself. You don't love yourself, your higher self that's beyond just the possession of yourself, right? Yeah. Then you can't love the other versions of you. So I leave on that note. I love you. Peace, love, and cheers. Namaste. Vibrating the highest frequency of love and light. Blessed we be to be born, to live, to die, thereby exist. Exist there we be while experiencing simultaneously this reciprocated cycle of a sacred trilogy, seated by the stardust and cosmic debris. Have a beautiful day. Days. Ja! Copper Dog is great. And he loves sticks and stones. Wah!